In the dead heart of the Milky Way, where light bows in time fractures, there spins a force so absolute it defies human comprehension, Sagittarius A*, a supermassive black hole. Around it, space itself surrenders. But what no one on Earth knows is that something ancient waits beyond that veil. The story begins in 2137, aboard the Eclipse 1, a stealth-class research ship launched in secrecy by the Interstellar Federation. Their objective wasn't observation, it was infiltration. Decades of faint anomalous signals, pulses too regular for nature, convinced the Council that something intelligent was operating inside the black hole's gravitational influence. Every previous probe was lost, crushed, or silenced. But Eclipse 1 was different. It carried humanity's most dangerous weapon, a mind enhanced by quantum neural entanglement. Commander Elara Voss, a scientist forged by war and loss, volunteered for a one-way mission. As the ship descended toward the gravity well, reality began to tear. Time slowed to a crawl from Earth's perspective, but on board, Elara lived seconds like minutes. Outside her window, stars twisted like ink in water. The blackness beyond the event horizon wasn't just emptiness, it pulsed, breathed, like a living eye. And then, she saw it. A structure, massive and angular, orbiting within the photon sphere, the last place light can still escape. It shouldn't be possible. But there it was, the black hole base, built of obsidian metal, anchored in a way that defied physics. Suspended like a spider on web lines of gravitational force. This wasn't human. The base emitted no light. Its presence was a shadow upon shadows, yet her quantum sensors screamed. Artificial readings. Activity. Life. As Eclipse 1 drifted closer, a deep hum shook the hull. Not mechanical. Not natural. Intentional. A signal flooded the ship's systems, not a message, but an invitation. The controls flickered, and the ship altered course by itself. Elara tried to override, but her hands froze mid-command. Not from cold, but from awe. A voice, neither male nor female, echoed in her mind. "You are expected." Her heartbeat surged. This wasn't a discovery. It was an arrival. As Eclipse 1 docked with the alien megastructure, the black hull of the base opened like a flower of darkness, revealing corridors lit by impossible geometries, walls that changed shape as you looked at them. Inside, time itself felt thin, stretched like skin over something vast and ancient. She stepped through the airlock, her boots making no sound, her suit's oxygen suddenly unnecessary. She had crossed more than a spatial threshold. She had stepped into something else's domain. And they had been waiting a long time. There are places in the universe where time flows like a river, predictable, forward, slow. But the black hole base was not such a place. Inside its hallways, time was an echo chamber, looping, pulsing, folding over itself like a Mobius strip of causality. Commander Elara Voss walked cautiously, her footsteps silent, not because sound didn't travel, but because the base chose not to let it. Even the sound of her breath seemed borrowed. The corridor ahead was unlike anything born of human engineering. It shifted as she moved, walls reconfiguring with a silent grace, surfaces pulsing with light that wasn't reflected but emitted from the very structure of the material. Every step forward brought her deeper into something ancient, intelligent, and disturbingly aware. It wasn't just that the architecture was alive, it watched her. And then, she saw them. Not beings in the traditional sense. No limbs. No faces. No eyes. Just forms, tall, translucent silhouettes that shimmered in and out of phase, like reflections in broken glass. Elara instinctively reached for her sidearm, but her hand refused to obey. Not out of fear. Out of futility. Something deep inside her knew violence here was not possible. Not because of peace, but because of irrelevance. The figures hovered in a chamber that defied geometry. Shapes curved inward and outward simultaneously. There was no floor, yet Elara stood. There was no ceiling, yet a sky full of stars loomed above, closer than any telescope had ever seen. At the center of the chamber floated a singular object, a pulsating orb of gravitational singularity. A miniature black hole, contained in some form of stasis field. It was both beautiful and terrifying. The figures turned toward her without moving. A voice ancient and symphonic pierced her thoughts. "We are the architects of gravity." Her breath caught in her throat. Not a translation. The words formed directly in her mind, in her own voice. The architects didn't speak with sound, they rewrote meaning at the root of consciousness. Memories surfaced unbidden, her father's death and the orbital riots, the silence after her brother's disappearance beyond Europa, the lonely nights in cryosleep training, all woven together, understood in a blink. They had read her. Your kind reached into the void. Few do. Fewer survive. But none have ever arrived, with eyes still open. Elara felt weightless. Not in body, but in soul. Her identity, her pain, her ambition, all of it fell. We do not destroy. We shape. What your species calls black holes or seeds. We plant them where they are needed. And now, your kind approaches a crossroads. The chamber darkened. Images burst into her mind: Earth fractured by war, Mars burning red, colony ships lost in the void. But also, peace, unity, ascension. The choice. Your world is on the cusp of becoming, or ending. And then silence. The architects vanished. The chamber was empty. Only Elara remained, standing before a singularity, and a decision that would define the fate of her species. Alone again, if such a word still had meaning, Commander Elara Voss stood before the suspended singularity. It pulsed gently, not as a threat, but like a heartbeat in deep slumber. The architects were gone, or perhaps they had simply chosen not to be perceived anymore. Either way, what remained was the overwhelming sense that this chamber, this moment, had been prepared just for her. The air shimmered, and the walls of the chamber began to change. They retracted, revealing vast vistas that could not exist inside any physical structure. Above her stretched a starlit sky, but not Earth's. This sky held twin galaxies colliding in frozen ballet. Beneath her feet, a translucent floor displayed entire planetary systems spinning in real time, their orbits traced by arcs of golden light. She was in a place where physics was not just obeyed, it was designed. In the center of the space, a new form began to emerge. It was not made of matter but of energy, shaped like a crystalline tree of light. Each of its branches ended in floating orbs, and inside each orb, Elara could see a different version of Earth. One was lush, covered in forests, cities harmonized with nature, oceans vibrant and clean. Another was dark, a planet consumed by fire, ash clouds swirling over a fractured crust. And one was empty. Not destroyed. Just gone. No people. No animals. Just silence. These are echoes, the voice returned, not spoken, but felt. Possible outcomes branching from your world's moment of divergence. A narrow platform extended from where she stood to the base of the light tree. On it, a pedestal rose, and upon that pedestal was her handprint. Perfect. Waiting. The realization struck her like a thunderclap: she was the instrument. Not a messenger. Not a witness. The trigger. You have crossed the veil, the architects intoned. You carry the sum of your species' momentum. Your decision will ripple outward across light years, across timelines. The choice is not of salvation or destruction. The choice is evolution. She looked at the tree again. Each orb swirled with its own frequency. Some glowed warmly. Others flickered like dying stars. They weren't predictions. They were invitations. But how could one human choose the fate of an entire planet? You already have, the voice replied. By coming. The rest is alignment. Elara stepped forward. Her boots made no sound. Her breath was calm. The weight of 1,000 gene ratio. The chamber ignited. Light poured from the tree. The orb spun wildly, colliding, merging, collapsing into a single radiant core. The pedestal dissolved, and Elara was lifted into the air, her body weightless, her mind spinning. She felt everything. Past. Future. All of human history compressed into a single burst of awareness. She didn't scream. She understood. Then, silence. She was back in her body. Alone again. The chamber now dark. The tree of light gone. And deep in her mind, a countdown had begun. There was no transition, no flash, no thunderclap, no storm of interstellar wonder. One moment, Elara Voss stood inside the vast choice chamber, and the next, she was in darkness. Not blackness, but absence. A place where even the idea of light had never been conceived. Yet she was not afraid. Because something inside her had changed. The architects were gone. The tree of futures had vanished. The pedestal no longer existed. But in her mind, a pulse echoed, steady, rhythmic, ancient. Like a drumbeat from beyond time itself. 3 seconds apart. Then 2. Then 1. Then silence. Then the pattern repeated. Over and over. A countdown that ticked not toward destruction, but transformation. Elara activated her neural link, trying to interface with Eclipse 1. But the comms didn't work. Not because they were broken, but because they were irrelevant. Her ship was still docked somewhere behind layers of non-space. But her bond with it, once inseparable, now felt like a distant whisper across a frozen lake. Suddenly, the void parted. A circular platform lit beneath her feet, casting a soft white glow. Beyond it, space unfolded like a scroll revealing a curved observatory dome. She approached the edge and gasped. Below her was the black hole, but no longer as she first saw it. It now swirled with radiant filaments of color, threads of violet, gold, and deep indigo spiraling like a storm made of time. And circling it, in perfect harmony, were structures. Dozens. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Bases. Each different in shape, origin, design, some angular, others fluid, some even organic looking. The architects had not merely built one outpost, they had built a network. Across countless civilizations. Across countless eras. You are not the first, the voice returned, softer now. But you are, among the chosen. Elara's heart skipped. Each seed placed across galaxies brings forth a new branch. Some wither. Some bloom. Earth's bloom has begun. She stared out at the other bases, some alive with motion, glowing with energy. Others dark, lifeless, failed experiments of long-lost species. She felt the gravity of it. Not just the physical force pulling her toward the singularity, but the metaphysical pull of legacy. Earth had not merely discovered the void, it had been invited into its secret. And her choice had unlocked the gate. Suddenly, holograms surrounded her, Earth's atmosphere, its orbit, its data grids, its people. A live feed. She was watching her world from afar. Elara felt tears well up, not from sadness, but awe. The countdown has begun. 10 years on Earth's clock. One final test. Then, alignment or extinction. 10 years. Not long. One choice remains. To return, or to stay. The platform pulsed beneath her feet. A doorway opened behind her, back to the ship. Back to time. Back to humanity. And ahead was the center of the base. The Nexus. Where the true nature of the architects and the final truth awaited. She turned to face the Nexus. And she walked forward. Beyond the doorway was silence, not the absence of sound, but the pure stillness of an intelligence watching without form, without time. Commander Elara Voss stepped into the Nexus, heart steady, soul burning. This was not just the core of the base. It was the heart of the architects, the place where civilizations were judged, not by their weapons, but by their intent. The chamber was infinite and intimate, vast and enclosed all at once. It existed outside dimensions, like standing in the pupil of an eye too large to imagine. Above her floated a structure unlike anything she'd seen, a lattice of pure gravity, spinning with thoughts, not data. She wasn't looking at machines. She was staring into a mind. The architects were not a species. They were not even a race. They were a consciousness, a networked intelligence formed over billions of years, forged from the memories of fallen civilizations, survivors of extinction, wanderers of galaxies swallowed by entropy. They had once been physical. Now, they were legacy incarnate. "You have come far," the voice whispered, not in sound, but in resonance. "And now you must see." The walls around her transformed into a swirling archive, visions of alien worlds destroyed by greed, saved by unity, consumed by arrogance, reborn through sacrifice. Elara watched a crystalline species dissolve into pure light to avoid a civil war. She saw a reptilian civilization terraform a moon into a library of souls. She saw others fail, choosing domination over evolution. All of them had come here. Some, like her, had chosen to touch the tree. Few had made it to the nexus. We do not control destiny. We amplify it. The lattice mind pulsed. A projection appeared in front of Elara herself, but not her body. Her thoughts, her choices, her regrets, her defiance. All mapped like a constellation. The signal Earth now received was not simply knowledge or peace, it was a mirror, reflecting humanity's deepest truths. For 10 Earth years, the world would evolve or fall, guided by what she had unlocked. "Why me?" she asked. "Why a single human?" The answer was a feeling, not words, because only individuals make decisions. Species follow. The architects had learned the universal constant: evolution was not driven by gods or machines, but by personal choices echoing outward. One person opens a door. The rest decide to walk through it. The nexus dimmed. A final pathway opened, curving up toward a ring of energy. She stepped forward. Her body felt lighter. Her thoughts expanded. She was merging, not dying, but translating. Becoming part of the lattice. Not erased, remembered. One last message was transmitted from the base. One signal, encoded with her final thought. Tell them they still have time. Underscore 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 underscore. Back in Earth orbit, 10 years passed. The signal continued. Wars ended. Nations united under pressure they didn't understand. Technology surged. Minds opened. Some resisted. Some clung to the old world. But others adapted. And then, at the end of the 10th year, the signal stopped. Just once, across every sky, across every screen, across every consciousness, Elara Voss appeared. No sound. Just a gaze. And then the stars aligned, literally. A golden arc stretched across the sky from east to west. The architects had returned. But this time, they didn't come to judge. They came to invite. Earth was ready.